the whole conversation of like we feel like it is the man's duty to die first kind of thing. Like it's like make sure you go before me, because
it's true.
And really and truly, it's nobody's decision how that is going to play out. We all are going to be. we're all getting up one day working, and it could happen to any of us at any time. But we feel like that puts a lot of pressure on us mentally at the same time too, because you're out there, you're working hard. Progressive men like ourselves are out there working hard every day, trying to provide for our families and all of those kind of things. Really and truly, anything could happen at any time, and then you hear that. It's, he didn't leave anything for something. All of that work would have been in vain. He's so selfish.
It's not an easy conversation, for sure, to have.
And I'm going to say this because I can say firsthand that I've heard this, and I probably say it jokingly at times, women tend to be selfish with their assets.
Okay.
So, I'm sure you've heard the mindset, the term, what is yours is mine, but what is mine is mine. It's a thing what women do. Yes, it's true. I do it jokingly, but I don't really mean it. But it is an irresponsible thing that we say, and it's because of that mindset. That's the reason why we tend not to have a will.
No. Hey guys, welcome back to Faded Conversation Season 2. Today we're going to be talking about why it seems like it's the man's duty to die first. And I say that because in our cultural society, men are pushed forward to work and leave a will for their family, while as women who that are also working with us shoulder to shoulder don't seem to place the same importance, or society doesn't place the same importance on women leaving wills for their family, especially in these types of cultures where it's a lot of single mothers. That's only going to leave a gap that we probably should have a conversation about filling, and talks about relationships and trust and writing wills for people, for yourself as a matter of fact, so that we can have a conversation on how we deal with death in this society. So some great topics came up. We talked to some lawyers and some financial advisors. It's a great episode, so check it out. Alright, so Eugenia, we talk about a lot about, it's at least society talks a lot about, men leaving something for their children, their wives, their family. But I don't hear the conversation coming up a lot about women doing the same thing, especially because women are shoulder to shoulder with men every day, doing the same jobs, doing sometimes better job at the same jobs. And I find that has to kind of be a cultural shift, because if anything is absolutely certain, it is that one day we are all going to pass away. What can we do to start putting this in place, or kind of make that like a standard thing? I mean, that you're going to pass away, but we don't like to talk about, writing a will. Maybe it is the ominous factor of death and all of those things, but how can we change this, especially in a society where there are a lot of single mothers? So you'll find that if men are really the ones that are culturally supposed to be leaving things to their family, and then there are a lot of single mothers, then there's going to be a huge gap there. So how is it that you think that we can address something like that?
We have to change the narrative first. We have to change the narrative, and it starts with the banks. Funny enough, not enough conversation is being held from a financial advisor, investment advisor's perspective with the females. So what you find happening, Chad, is that the men will come in, establish their accounts, eventually meet the wife or the partner, and the men would already have it in their mind, say, okay, boy, we need to put her on their accounts, we need to get a will, and then I will then be the devil's advocate and say, hey, what about you? You're not going to get a will?
Exactly.
So for a cultural change to take place, there has to be a change in the narrative, because we're still stuck in the mindset that men are the sole breadwinners. We've moved way past that for years now, where both persons in the household are contributing to the income. It's a conversation that has to be had from a relationship level, where the men has to speak to the women about it. So it's something that needs to change, honestly, because as I said, there are a lot of single mothers. And the truth be told, even if you're in a relationship, something can happen to the man.
Exactly.
And then what I find happen from my perspective, a lot of them have to start from scratch. And especially for men who have multiple children.
Yeah, and children with multiple.
The children are going to be held, in priority.
Exactly.
So I agree with you. It's true. Because when I do throw the question out to the women, they look surprised.
Exactly.
And it's something that never ever crossed their mind, that they themselves need to get a will.
I mean, you are also working, you're acquiring assets well. as a matter of fact, when you talk about assets, I mean, I'm sure the women are homeowners, women own cars, women do all of these things, but then when it comes to, you know, what is your will to leave this to somebody else? It's like, really, I never give that any thought.
Women have to change their mindset, because the thing about it is they are completely dependent on the men mentally. So even if, let's just say we're married and I'm working in corporate, you're working in corporate, but for some reason the woman still thinks that you need to take care of everything. And that is where the conversation needs to shift. So in their mind, the assets is on you.
Are your responsibility.
So it's almost like they become tone deaf to the reality. So they have to change their mindset. Women themselves have to change their mindset. And then when I say to women, they'll be like, oh, but I don't really have assets. You have accounts.
TV, you have accounts, you have a car. I mean, yeah, the bank may have a loan on the car and those kind of things, but you're paying it off to own it, right? So eventually all of these things are assets.
It's not an easy conversation for sure to have with a female.
Yeah.
To say, hey, you need to leave a will, or hey, you need to have your finances in order. You know, it's just simple little things to start with. You know, in terms of like, hey, you know, get a life insurance, get a, you know, health insurance at first, not even life insurance.
Yeah, let's start with while you're alive.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's start with
you know, secure our finances for our 30 years. You know, simple conversation about when you guys have kids, you know, what are you going to do for like a college fund? You know, start an early college fund come before them. You know, them more. So when you reach a certain age, you know, there's something there to do. So just starting with the small things so they start to understand the importance of financial planning.
And you know, I'm going to add to that. Because what happens is, especially both persons in the household are working, one will come in, establish an account, let's just say, for your daughter, and the other person is supposed to come in after. Right. But because both of you are working, something never happens, and they go on and forget the boy, I'm alone up on the account with the child. Know what happened, and it happens a lot. Let's just say you pass away, your wife didn't even remember that there was an account that you created for your daughter. She can have access to it just like that. As much as how she is legally the wife. Right. She has to go to the
whole process,
go to the whole expensive process with a lawyer because, you know, and
probate and all those things.
I think what they need to understand, you're leaving a lot of stress on your family members. A lot. Because when you have a will in place, there's a section of the will, there's a clause that allows you to cover assets that you didn't specifically identify. There's a clause in it that, like, for example, all other assets not mentioned. Okay. Right. Please leave to.
Oh, so you can kind of leave
you
ambiguous
actually can
at that point.
Yeah, there's a clause that you can put in the will, which of course we recommend doing it to an attorney. So, and then women are thinking that, boy, I don't have nothing right now.
Exactly.
So let's just say I don't have any assets apart from a car, probably it's a car, I live in a rent house. Right. Let's just say within the next year, you decide to buy a house. Then you decide to start a business. Then you decide to, and then you just forget.
Exactly. Like you're so ingrained in the day-to-day that you kind of forget the high-level part of it. And honestly, that has happened to me. I mean, before my daughter was born in 2016, my friend of mine that is a lawyer, been my friend for years and years, just said, yo, you know what, make a will. And it's not really until you sit there and you start to write down, you realize how much you actually own and acquire. It's like it's very, it's one of those things that it's not until you sit down there and you start to pencil, okay, who would I give this to? Who would this be assigned to? That you realize that you do actually own more than you think you own.
You do.
So
you do.
We can't just wait until that conversation comes up.
It's one for you first about the unassigned finances.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
It's true.
Important.
Yeah, very, very important.
Oh, you forget.
Yeah, you do forget that you have this account here that's there for like let's say you change jobs, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Especially for me in the States where when you change job, your 401k doesn't really change with you. So you don't even have it.
Okay.
You know, like
cool.
it's there, you could take the distribution and take the initial tax. Even back just there sitting here, you forget it day to day.
Okay.
You know, you have that account. Start a new one over here, time pass, that's there growing. And let's say anything happens to you, what happens to that money goes to waste, doesn't pass on to who you would want.
Yeah,
and haven't you seen cases where for example, the man was married, did his will, that relationship ended, moved on, and did not update his will. So the ex-wife got everything, for example. It happens, trust me, it happens.
I can hear the drama coming from that already.
I've personally had a situation like that where the new wife comes in to claim the accounts and
I
It
know.
couldn't. No, it happened. In order for the narrative to change, where women take up the responsibility of ensuring that the finances are in order, it has to start from a at-home level.
Yeah, there has to be
This
a
conversation has to be had at home. Having a will with an attorney allows you to have a clause, a catch-all clause.
Yeah.
And I think you'll be.
Yeah, it's called a residual clause.
Yeah.
So it starts off with all the rest and residue I leave to X. That's essentially what it is. And for everything that you didn't specify in the will or throughout the will, that goes to whomever you say it should go to. Or go to the beneficiaries equally. That's what you could do, so it just catches everything right then and there.
Because I was mentioning before that I had a customer, a client back in VMBS who went away for like 40 years.
Yeah.
And she came in to open an account for her granddaughter, just visiting after 40 odd years.
Yeah.
And I'm like, hey, you have an account here at 1.5 million? Because VM has a structure that, you don't. I'm not a spade, that's not paid, by the way. But VM has a structure, they don't charge dormant fees.
Oh.
So it was just there.
Okay.
You understand? She
Was
didn't lose
accumulating
anything.
interest?
And it was not, just a little bit, but
Yeah, well, no bank interest. a
yeah,
little bit,
but she wasn't losing. Alright, and she didn't remember that she had that much money.
Yeah.
And I think that is where the catch-all clause would probably help her, maybe.
After she passed? Yeah, definitely.
Right.
Because you have a part, when you're probating away, right? So when you're going through that process, you will have something where we're recalling all the assets of the person. So we send letters to wherever we think you may have had bank accounts and wherever we think you may owe debts to or whatever. And those persons know, or those entities know, have an opportunity to say, hey, I have this amount of money for this person, or this person owes me X amount of money.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and that's why when you're doing those things, you have to put it in the newspaper for two consecutive weeks back to back. Not for the entire week, it was like 2 Sundays in a big newspaper. So persons look and say, okay, yeah man, so one time Chad, they have some money for me. Think of time for me to collect now.
like that.
And then you prioritize who is supposed to get paid first. Usually paid debts first out of the estate, and that's why when you look on a lot of agreements with banks, they tell you that there's a clause in there where they said your obligation to them is pari passu, and that means pretty much above everybody else's.
Okay.
You mentioned that that lady after 40 years came back. I guess the bank remember that she had a home for 1.5 million. If she had passed, let's say the year before she was not paid back, who would have notified the bank to let her know that she passed? And would they be able to say, hey, this person passed, we have an account there? Is that something that's being done?
Yeah, man. Well, if the banks do it themselves,
Or if someone
no, not to my knowledge.
So if she had a will that had the catch-all clause, it will come up. But in her case, she didn't have a will here. Right. She went overseas and established a brand new life, and nothing was here. So that would be it.
The money just gone back to the bank.
And would I get it?
Maybe not, because sometimes you see bank accounts
listed in the paper.
Yeah, they put the whole thing on these bank accounts or whatever. But remember that the law actually provides for even situations where you don't have a will.
Yeah.
So we have a law, an act that's called the Intestate Estates and Property Charges Act. Because remember, once you die without a will, you die intestate, right? And then you have in that same act what we have called a table of distribution, and that prioritizes who is able to claim off of the estate once you don't specify in a will. So first is usually spouse, and then after spouse it goes to children, and after children then it goes to parents, and after parents it goes down to even half brothers, half sisters. That kind of thing.
Okay. So that's the hierarchy. It's like wife, kids,
and then it goes on parents, brothers, sisters, half sisters, aunts, uncles. It just keeps
cousins.
I don't know.
I know it's an exhausting process. It is an exhausting process, and it's best to just have the will from morning.
Best arrange,
especially when the person outside kids. It can be exhausting. If you're not married, it's a common law situation.
When I was 25 and she mentioned will to me, it seemed like something that was far out or far-fetched, because you didn't own, you're thinking I don't own much at the time. But the more you work and the harder you work, you don't really take that wide angle view to say, okay, I actually do own this, and this, and this, and this, and who would I actually give it to? Because the people you probably give it to in 2015 are not the same people they're going to give it to in 2035 type of thing.
Yeah.
So, true, that consistent update.
Yeah, but I mean, once you start to accumulate assets, and an asset can be anything, I tell even DJs, I say, your laptop, your MacBook, and your headphones are probably the most valuable things right now. That's what's making you money.
Income generator.
So you probably have some dub plates on it that are exclusive that maybe your son who wishes to carry on the sound thing you probably have a dub from an artist that by the time he gets to a particular age has passed.
Yeah, exactly.
And can you imagine dig up an old dub plate from some artist? I don't want to call him because I don't wish nobody, but I mean, and he decides to carry on the sound name, whatever name. Suppose the sound name, Fade Sound or something. You understand what I'm saying? And him dig that up, that's a big thing. And probably he can win a clash off of that.
Exactly.
So you never know. So we start to say, once you start to accumulate some assets, something that's significant, just do it. You don't know.
Just put something together. Like how often would you encourage your clients to do it?
Like once a year.
Once a year.
Like once a year, you stop and you do an assessment and you say, all right, and what else have I accumulated, right? Because look at it this way: even if you just have $10,000 worth of shares in a company, you don't know what may happen to that company after you pass.
God,
Exactly.
And that becomes $10 million out of the blue.
Yeah.
You understand? You never know, so leave it to someone. You see?
Stock price usually go.
I'm glad you brought up that. I'm glad you brought that up because I'm going to use my personal situation here. So when I was younger, I didn't know anything about this. My uncle bought me some Grace Kennedy shares. The intention of those shares were for me to go to the UA. My parents are simple people. They never understand it. They still look at certificates. Never know where they're going. They so much so when I went to UA, they didn't remember about it, and I ended up taking up other form of financing, not realizing money was there. Now, needless to say, so many years ago, the value of those shares then versus now.
Exactly.
My uncle made sure to have a will, so just in case, and that is how we found out about it when he passed. I realized I had that much amount of money sitting down.
Don't say how much people take.
You don't want to be like the crab man. Don't want to be like the crab man.
I can't.
You don't want to be like the
without the will, I couldn't have took those shares, but they were still in his name even because I was a minor. But it was for me. My parents had the certificates, but it was in his name.
Exactly.
So that you brought up an interesting point. People will forget.
Women tend to be more comfortable drafting their wills.
It's true.
I don't know why.
It's true. You know, it is true. So
Women
even
tend to
though
be-
men are more likely to be expected to do the will, when I speak to my young professionals, say you need to do a will. But we are talking about that for no one. Women are more comfortable talking about death than men.
Yep.
So while this expectation is there for men, you find that women are the ones who are pushing the men to have the will, but they don't do it for themselves. That for some reason, persons are in a relationship, a long-term relationship, and don't like to speak about finances with their partner. And there are persons, men and women, who say, "Me not add my spouse, or me stay on their account by myself." They deliberately stay on their account by themselves.
Culturally,
That's a different conversation.
Culturally, I just think we just don't like to discuss finances
It
at
is
all.
a narrative.
I think it's an uncomfortable thing for people. It's something I even battle with sometimes. But I've become a lot more comfortable with it because I'm a professional. Like even just getting a job, sometimes when they ask you, like, you know, the big question in the interview, all right, so much you expect to get paid.
Like you become a little tense, like immediately.
You know, but then eventually just do it. But I mean,
It starts from the home.
yeah,
It
it does. And when it comes to men and women having that conversation, sometimes it's best to have a middle person, like an attorney, to prompt or a financial advisor to prompt the conversation. Let me use this example, like husband and wife, young couple, newly married, buying a house together. Let me tell you, everything is smooth. Yeah, man, we'll have the money. Yeah, man, we'll have the deposit, man. Yeah, man, we'll get the mortgage. Yeah, man, everything fine. All right, then, cool. We'll have the agreement for sale now. We have to indicate on the agreement for sale and transfer how we're going to own the property together. They say, what you mean? I say, you're going to be tenants in common, or you're going to be joint tenants. What each one mean? I explain both of them.
No one, tell us what it means, please.
Oh, sorry. Oh, sorry. Oh, so like, you know, tenants in common, you, at least joint tenancy first. Joint tenancy, I just spoke about the right of survivorship earlier.
No one dies, the other person take it over.
One dies, it passes to the next one. Then tenants in common, now you can actually specify how much percentage each one has in the property. So it can be 50-50, 60-40, 70-80, and so on and so forth, right? And that is when you start to see that tension start again. So I usually just say that and let it breathe. About the conversation, there are many ways to plan your estate and there are many ways to plan your finances. And let me bring up another thing that has a negative connotation, which is a prenuptial agreement. A lot of people think that's a situation where, oh, as if the marriage don't work out. But sometimes, no, that's not what it is. You can have things that speak about the death of your spouse in that agreement as well, where if I pass, what are you then to do? How is it supposed to go with our children and so on and so forth, you know?
Yeah, Rap did that for us, for sure.
What?
Rap just kind of threw the whole prenup agreement out the window.
Yeah, gave it a negative, just a negative view.
I'm happy you actually brought up that because as I say, it's very touching. Imagine the child you propose to someone and you kind of plan for your and say, hey, you know, I want to sign a prenup. You know, automatically it comes with a negative connotation.
And the trust thing that comes
it really does come with a negative behind that, oh, you don't trust me, you think you know, I'm just in for what you have. But it also...
Remember you have things that say, did you finish? Did you finish? Yeah, remember you have things, remember you know, in your vows, you know, I mean I haven't made mine, but the vows say, in health and sickness, for richer or for poorer. How the rest of it goes, Steph? Yeah, something like that. Yeah, health, sickness, rich or poor, those kind of things. So in that same agreement, you can put and say, if in the event that I am sick and I cannot conduct my finances in a particular way, my wife is responsible for handling X, or my husband is responsible for handling X and Y. And those are, so not just because you're prenup, you think, oh, it's just this bad thing if we left. No, exactly. There are many other things they can do.
I'm trying to get to is like, when you understand exactly what it is, and when it's a benefit to both parties.
It is.
Let's say, you know, you're 40, and you're 40 getting married. Both are coming with assets.
Exactly.
Right? You may have start, you know, like a business. Let's say, for example, you know, Stefan Chad and I have this shop here going or whatever. We have started before, whatever, right? We know, based on our business, what we have plans for it. That prenup will ensure that that plan is intact. You know, because let's say he was to, you know, break up from that marriage or whatever, without that prenup, you know, his wife could come in and
that happens.
Rechange the business and mash the whole entire business.
Exactly.
That's a way for him to protect his investment with a long-standing friend. So it's benefits to it.
Exactly.
And the truth is, you know, your only obligation will not be to your partner.
Exactly.
You have obligations to your business partners. You have obligations to your family investments. Because the thing is, you know, you come in with a family business. There are plans set in place. There what's they call it again? Survivorship plans in place with the family, within the family wealth.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to marry to somebody. You have to honor your obligations outside or that you had before you got married. I don't really want to prenup as a bad thing.
A lot of times people, you know, have these, you know, titles from back in the day. And when the time comes for it to, you know, I guess, divvy up amongst family members and create tension.
Yeah, man,
A lot of problems, a lot of issues, a lot of infighting, whatever. So to avoid that going forward, you know, it's like, you need to educate them. Say, hey,
they weren't
this is
guided
the
properly.
implication of having this type of title versus this type
they
of
weren't
title.
dedicated, you're right.
And they, again, as I said, based on their situation, you could find kind of like decide what is the best road for them to take.
Well, deadlift is a hell of a thing, and as I can say it, you have situations where, and in Jamaica I don't think it's an anomaly, where sometimes people will have even a secret family that you don't find out about until the person has
both male
passed.
and female.
Is it harder for you know? A lot of people don't go there. Is it? People have secret families, man, and you have to arrange the estate in a particular way. You have to plan the estate where things happen as peacefully as possible after the person passes. But so you usually, when it's time to read the will and it's time to tell everybody what they're gonna get and so on, everybody comes into the room and them see this one girl in the corner with a young youth and they're like, who is this? We don't know who she is.
Right.
And I said, well, everybody, leaving this to X and Y, it's X and Y, and to, you're here, and to my special friend, Kimisha, and my fourth son, Jason. I leave such and such, and you see the whole room.
Quiet.
Special friend.
And everybody's like, I mean, you have to find a way to term it.
Special friend.
You have to give it some dignity. I mean, you know,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
you have to give
It's
it some.
hurtful, but it's reality. It's
Oh,
reality.
it is. You know, I'm from a large family. on both sides.
Exactly,
So,
exactly. And so,
you cannot understand or kind of anticipate what will come.
yeah,
Further on, if something was to happen.
yeah.
And you always want to plan and prepare as well. I mean, it's scary. Right? It's scary to think that your loved ones will pass and whatever. I think we need to kind of like start having small discussions about small conversations with certain parts of the process, just to get comfortable with speaking about it and not have it be something, that's like a conversation. Once you hear something you don't want to hear, it's like kill a relationship without really knowing exactly why the person is doing
But we have to accept the fact that
Yeah.
in life, there's only two things them say really sure in life. Well, three, but when I mention the third one, the two things them say in life sure is death and taxes. Jesus, please.
Can I respond to the here and say and change?
And
change.
yes, change,
Really
right?
worried
So I mean, death and taxes. So death and taxes, and when you die, taxes come out of the thing too, as well, because the government still need their pint of blood,
And lawyer fees.
And lawyer fees.
Yes, those. Yes. So I mean, you have to have the conversation, my friend.
Start from home.
So, an eye opener for me as somebody that is always progressive, always working. And you talked about how we as men always, you set a goal and you reach the one peak to get to the next peak type of thing. That's how we are. We're always very progressive from that perspective. And somebody called me one day, a good friend of mine that sells life insurance, and has asked me recommendations for other people. So you kind of tend to scroll in your head and it's like, who out of my friends, them progressive, them have a little money, them trying to build them thing. And I gave the person like probably 2 or 3 names, and funny enough, I saw one of those persons like later that night at a party, and them did their talk and have a drink, and some of them have a lot of respect for being, we grow from we young and we happy to see each other reach where we reach now. And in the conversation with him, he was saying, oh yeah, by the way, somebody did call me, but I'm not really in them thing there. So what you mean in them thing there, bro? I mean, at some point in time, you have to drop out, and you've been with this girl for like 10 years, and been with the same girl for a while. And your mother is there, I know you love your family and all of them things there, but the man looked me dead in my face and told me, bro, what happens after I die is not my concern, It's like,
it's true.
in absolute seriousness. Like, some people genuinely believe that, and it's not. And they're not close-minded people either. They are go-getters like me and you, and but they just genuinely believe that, when I go, that's that, bro. I mean, it is selfish in my opinion, but it was an eye-opener for me because I always expected it to be people that never really were ambitious people that thought like that. But there are ambitious people that like, put me in the ground, my G. That's it for me.
I think some of it is ignorance, and some of it is very contradictory, because you will see a man and say, yeah man, you don't know legacy, generational wealth and that kind of thing. You don't know that if you don't sort out yourself, the generational wealth, family, your people have to start over pretty much.
Exactly. Where's the generational wealth gonna come from? If you work now and all the work that you've accumulated is just brats, and then they have to start over, then they're in the same cycle that you are. Like, you would have done nothing to help what is coming down the line, like you continue to continuously preach about.
I've heard the worst, man. I've heard people say, like, yo, when me get in my life, I'm my picking for find the moon.
Generational wealth is not something that's discussed enough amongst the middle class and the lower class.
True.
People talk about, they admire the certain last names and boy, they get it better in life. No, these people with certain last names, they believe strongly about generational wealth.
True.
While within our middle class, lower class, upper middle class, we just cannot be like, They have to find their own, you know.
Exactly.
Now left no money for nobody to go fight over. Make go deal with it themselves. Me have to work hard my whole life and it's like they're angry.
Yo.
But we think of it as something that we're leaving for someone else. But in truth, there's a lot of benefits to having a life insurance for yourself. You know, there's that life insurance where, let's say you have a illness that your health insurance doesn't cover. You could get
Some of the money from it.
Critical illness.
You could even have that account, let's say we started now, 20 years from now that life insurance matures.
Yep.
You could get that money and start a new one.
And that's something that people forget. There are certain debts that won't die with you. And then so when it comes to insurance, it's something as simple as that. Who gonna bury you with what money?
Exactly.
Ask them that simply. I don't sell insurance, but I have to ask who gonna bury you with what money? That is where life insurance comes in. Honestly, for me, I got mine at 21 because I'm saying, boy, I'm not father to worry about my student loan. I'm not father to worry about my car loan, nothing like that. I ensure to have life insurance so that who I'm leaving behind can take care of whatever I leave behind.
Yep.
Who gonna bury you?
Sometimes when I'm reasoning with them, I have to be very colloquial. And I say, you want a big funeral, you want a small funeral.
Yeah, man.
You want people, Jamaicans criticize everything from wedding to funeral to 9-night. Boy, I only one drink a room, I get a 9-night, you know. So they couldn't buy a better goat, I one goat, they have those kind of things. So I still have to say it to them, like, so you want people judge you after you're dead, boss? Organize your life. So hashtag fix your life. Man.
I think that's the hashtag, fix your life. Very, very important things came out, and how people that are in our generation will probably change how their mindset towards this at this time. I mean, yeah, you can get up and go out there and work every day, but if you don't have anything at the end of the day set up for what happens in the eventuality, that the only thing that is certain, which is death and taxes, happens, then you're working for nothing. You're getting up and going to work now to try and buy things that nobody's really gonna have at the end of the day. So, thank you guys, appreciate it.